Hey, it's Luke from LT Gaming, and today we're doing something this channel is really known for. Digging through the strategy pile and finding the war games that maybe didn't get the spotlight they deserved or have been slightly forgotten. Because in 2026 there are more war games than ever fighting for your attention, but some of the most interesting ones aren't always the newest or the ones with the biggest marketing push. So today we're looking at 12 forgotten war games to play in 2026, and no, forgotten doesn't mean bad, it just means that I want more players in these games because they deserve it. And if you enjoy this kind of deep dive strategy list with a real human voice behind it, give the video a like, because it helps our channel get above all the rubbish that's out there, to be honest, and keeps me searching in the weirder corners of the wargaming world. Command Ops 2 is a brilliant pick for this list because it still feels genuinely different from almost everything else in the genre. Instead of hexes, turns and constant micromanagement, this is a pausable, real-time operational wargame where you're thinking more like a corps, division or brigade commander. You'll be planning, issuing orders, reacting to the situation and trusting your subordinates to carry things out. This really is the kind of high-level immersive command I really enjoy from games, to be honest. And that command system itself is definitely a selling point, with order delays, realistic command structures and AI that can actually manage parts of the battle for you. And that's why the game works so well in 2026. It might not be the prettiest wargame on Steam, but it scratches a very specific itch. That feeling of directing a battle rather than personally babysitting every unit on the map, that's just not realistic. And it's a great start to this list because the core game is free, so you can just go and try it right now. There is of course paid DLC, and I own a couple of those. I really want to jump back into this one tonight after featuring it, but it's great to kick off a list with a free game for you guys to go and try out. It's something we really love to do for you at LT Gaming. SGS Taipings is a great example of why this list shouldn't just be wall-to-wall World War II. It drops you into the Taiping Rebellion in 19th century China, letting you play either the Taiping rebels and their allies or the Qing Empire trying to hold their dynasty together. It's a turn-based strategic wargame with land forces, naval units, foreign intervention, events, and a number of scenarios ranging from shorter campaigns to the full 13-year conflict. And SGS Taiping still stands out in 2026 because the setting alone gives it a very different flavour from the usual wargame rotation. Yeah, okay, it has that slightly old school SGS card and event style, but it is covering a huge, messy, underused conflict where politics, rebellion, outside powers and stretched imperial forces all collide. If you're looking for a historical wargame that feels genuinely different, this is a really strong pick. Combat Mission 3 Afrika Core is proper old school tactical wargaming, but with a scope that still feels seriously impressive and will put a lot of modern games to shame. It covers Crete, North Africa, Sicily and Italy with a mix of real-time action and turn-based planning, plus 7 campaigns over 140 scenarios and a massive spread of infantry, armour, artillery and aircraft. And this game still earns its place in 2026 because it's one of those classic systems that still has real bite. It's not here to hold your hand or dazzle you with modern presentation, but if you want detailed World War II tactics, combined arms, desert warfare, and that old Battlefront design DNA, this is a focused little time capsule worth revisiting. Saratoga feels like a proper board wargame brought across to PC without trying to sand off all the edges. It's a digital version of GMT Games' Saratoga, the first volume in the Great Battles of the American Revolution series, built around the Battle of Saratoga. A battle the British should have won, and then we would have avoided all this mess and the world would have been a great place. I joke, my American friends, of course. But it was a real turning point in the American Revolution, a bit of a British mess-up, to be honest. What makes it interesting is that it leans into that classic 70s and 80s tabletop wargame feel with hex maps, counters, leaders, terrain modifiers, dice rolls, and historically grounded unit capabilities, rather than trying to turn the battle into something flashier and more arcade-like. It's also brought to you by Bob Tipton, a really good friend of the channel. You should go pick this game up and support all his titles. They're all brilliant games and I have to say I've enjoyed them greatly. And Saratoga's a nice little highlight for 2026 because it represents a slightly different side of PC wargaming. This isn't about massive fronts, endless production queues or controlling half the world. It's a focused, compact battle system where the appeal is in maneuver, timing, leadership and squeezing the most out of a very specific historical situation. With solo play, online PvP, 3 scenarios and a very positive early Steam reception, it feels like exactly the kind of overlooked historical wargame that board game fans and digital strategy players could easily miss. But it's definitely one you wargamers are going to really appreciate. Pick this one up. Just a quick interlude to say most of you who watch the channel are not subscribed. So make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button because it helps smaller channels like us grow really quickly and both me and Tom really appreciate it. This is an RTS grand strategy hybrid set in Cold War nightmare territory, where you're managing invasions, diplomacy, bombing campaigns, and an arms race tech tree that runs through the 60s to 80s. Warfare isn't just tanks and planes either. It includes missile systems, ABMs, and cities, plus populations which are part of what you're fighting over. This is an easy one to justify because it's built for repeatable runs, a short and fascinating contained single-player campaign, and even an included scenario editor if you want to make your own setups. It supports online PvP, so it works for both solo sessions and small group chaos. This is truly the definition of a hidden gem. Go and pick this one up for the price. It's an absolute steal and definitely an experience. Hex of Steel is one of those wargames that feels like it should be much bigger than it is. On the surface, it looks like a fairly traditional World War II hex-and-counter strategy game, but once you start digging in, there's a huge amount going on here. You've got massive theatres across Europe, North Africa and the Pacific, a clean turn-based structure, plenty of unit variety, and a game that tries to give you the scale of a grand campaign without turning every session into a spreadsheet management course. It's also accessible enough to understand fairly quickly, but it still has that satisfying wargame depth where positioning, supply, terrain and timing all matter. Hex of Steel is still a great one to jump into in 2026 because it still feels alive. This isn't just an older wargame that was released and forgotten about. I guess that is the title of the video, but we'll go with it. It had years of updates, a strong feature set, workshop support, and even recent improvements like a reworked scenario generator. So if you want a World War II wargame that gives you a lot of content, a lot of flexibility, and that classic just one more turn feeling, without being completely impenetrable, this is exactly the kind of overlooked gem that belongs on this list. Sword and Siege Crusades Book 1 brings that classic wargame design studio feel into one of the most interesting medieval settings you could ask for. This is a tactical wargame covering the First and Second Crusades with sieges, field battles, frontier warfare and 74 scenarios. The scale is nice and detailed too, with 40-meter hexes and 10-minute turns, so it's not just big armies crashed together. Terrain, supply, relief forces and siege equipment all matter in this one. And I know this one's brand new on Steam, but it doesn't have a massive player base, so it's one of those games that definitely deserves more attention in 2026 because it is brand new, but it's aimed squarely at people who love old school detailed historical war games. The Crusade setting is really unique and gives it a different flavour from the usual World War II heavy scene, and with branching campaigns, play by email, hot seat AI play and scenario editing tools, there's a lot here for players who want something slower, meatier and a bit more unusual. Attack at Dawn North Africa is a cracking little gem because it makes operational desert warfare feel fast and surprisingly modern. You're commanding battalions, brigades, divisions and air wings across the North African theatre, but the game keeps everything uncluttered with a choice between real-time and turn-based WWII play. It captures that back and forth desert feel really well with long roads, wide maps, mobile formations, fog of war and the constant sense that one bad commitment can unravel your whole plan. In 2026, this one still feels really smooth on modern systems, which is not always guaranteed with niche wargames. It has that rare mix of depth and usability, historical and hypothetical scenarios, and a huge map stretching from Libya to Egypt. The game also looks really nice, the UI is very clean, and a scenario editor is there if you want to go deeper. Basically, if you want a North Africa wargame that feels serious without feeling ancient, this is absolutely one of the better hidden picks. Also, there were rumours to a sequel to this game. I don't ever know what happened to that, but I definitely will be checking in. I mean, let's get it made. Conquest of Elysium 5 is probably the weirdest pick on this list, but in the best possible way. It's a quick turn-based fantasy strategy game with roguelike flavour, random maps, monsters everywhere, and 24 factions that don't just have different units, they often play by completely different rules. For instance, one faction might be building a forest empire and summoning creatures, another might be obsessed with mines, while another is draining the life out of the world with pyramids of power. I mean, why not? It's great to have a little fantasy flavour in our wargames, and Conquest of Elysium 5 still does that really well in 2026. Of course, it's not a traditional historical wargame, but if you like deep strategy, chaos, asymmetry, and games that tell ridiculous little stories through their systems, this is absolutely one of those forgotten gems worth digging into. Castle Itter is a small wargame built around one of the strangest last stands of World War II, and it was a game that actually made me go read a book on this situation. It's a solitaire card-driven board game adaptation where US troops, Wehrmacht soldiers, an Austrian resistance fighter, and French prisoners defend the castle against the SS in the final days of the war. Yes, it's a true story, go and look it up. It's very compact, focused, and very much about surviving the odds rather than commanding a huge battlefield. Absolutely fascinating historical game, I have to say, this one. Castle Itter is a nice pick in 2026 because it's quick, cheap and different, but still really good. It has that solo tabletop feel where the whole appeal is tension, theme and trying to squeeze one more turn out of a collapsing defense. If you want a small wargame with a brilliant historical hook, this is the one. The Troop is exactly the sort of game that reminds you small-scale wargaming can be just as tense as commanding an entire front. It's a turn-based platoon-level tactical game set in Normandy following British and Canadian forces. The appeal is that it feels very tabletop in spirit, but clean and controlled on PC. Infantry, armor, hidden guns, careful movement, and no messy real-time chaos getting between you and your bad decisions. And The Troop is still a great play in 2026. I've recently stuck 35 hours into it. I just absolutely love this game. You've got story scenarios, skirmishes, campaigns with persistent units, and a dynamic battle group mode. There's so much content here to enjoy. In my opinion, the game does get some unfair hate also, because there are dice rolls involved and a lot of people think that they're biased or they're not fair. I just think you're not very good at the game, to be honest. You have to play this game giving yourself the best chance to win, and it doesn't always go your way then. It's tough, unforgiving, but absolutely brilliant once you master it. Once I really understood this game, it was just great. I know there's a number of people on our Discord who are also now fans of this game, and I think you should check it out too, and don't moan about it being hard. It's just a tough game. If you want World War II tactics that's approachable yet tough, sharp and full of character, this is one people really shouldn't sleep on. The DLCs are also excellent, just saying. Regiments is still one of the best games if you want Cold War real-time tactics without drowning in multiplayer sweat. And I'll always have a soft spot for this game because we had our first big should you buy with this a few years ago. Set in a fictional 1989 conflict, it gives you NATO and Warsaw Pact formations, tactical units, smart control, and battles that feel fast and dangerous without becoming completely chaotic. You know, it's a little bit of a tonic to War Now if I'm honest, although War Now has become one of my favourite games ever. But this is definitely slower and a bit more deliberate. It sits in a nice space between approachable RTS and proper wargame where positioning, recon, artillery and timing all really matter. And in 2026 it's an even easier recommendation to include Regiments because the final update has now been delivered. No, the dev has not abandoned the game, he just finished it and that should be praised. He added way more battle groups and it gives the game a strong finished state feel. It may not have the scale or noise of some bigger Cold War strategy games, but as a focused single player tactical war game, yes, single player, which sometimes is all I want, it still holds up brilliantly and absolutely is worth rediscovering.